والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All praise and glory belongs to Allah, the Creator of this universe. May the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon the Holy Prophet and his holy progeny. 1988 August 5th was the date that one of the greatest personalities that Pakistan has ever seen, and will probably would be the first and last that Pakistan would see, was martyred on that date. His name was Sayyid Arif al-Hussein. His personality was based on certain principles that are the principles of Islam. The principles of justice, the principles of true freedom for humanity, the principles of the sacrifice of Imam Hussein, the principle of that Islam is a way of life, and in that all that a human being goes through, whether it happens to be playing the role of a father, or a sister playing the role of a mother or a wife, or whether you are working, you are studying, you are a student, whether there is the political system, whether there is the economical system, whatever that a human being needs or requires or lives or plays a role, Islam is a system of life. Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah alayhi, approximately over 32 years ago, asked the people that they should live their life according to Islam, and that the tyrants of the time should stop oppressing the oppressed, that the people have the right to be able to live their lives according to the tenets and fundamentals of Islam. He brought that idea, which was not a new idea, it was an old idea. It was an idea that the Prophet brought. It was the idea that the 124,000 prophets brought. It was the idea that Imam Mahdi taught and lived their life accordingly. But people had forgotten that. People had forgotten that Amr bil Maruf wa Nahy anil Munkar is actually the backbone and the lifeline of Islam. They had forgotten that it is a religious duty for a person to stand up and put a voice against the oppressors of the time. They had looked at religion just as fasting, as going for Hajj, doing their namaz, their salah, doing the rituals of Islam and nothing else. Which meant that as long as your rituals are there, that you're able to perform your rituals, you're a Muslim. Now, who's ruling over you, what kind of system there is, whether the economical system or the political system, or the way that you're living your life, it doesn't really matter. You can live under the rule of the Shah, you can live under the rule of any tyrant, any oppressor, as long as your rituals are taken care of, you're okay. In Iraq, now that in Iraq the US occupation is going on, But before that, Iraq was also occupied by the British. And when the British went into the Iraq and they heard the call of prayers, right? There was a person giving azan. And when they heard the azan, the general asked one of the people who were the translators that, what is this? And he said that this is the call of prayer. We call people to come to the masjid and to pray. He said, well, you start going into the discussion of what azan is and so forth. He said, look, I don't need to know that. What I want to find out is whether this is going to become an obstacle, whether this will be an hindrance, whether this will create a problem for me to be able to rule over the people of Iraq. And the interpreter or the translator replied, no, sir, this will have no issues for you. You'll have no issues. You'll be able to rule over the people without a problem. The reply was from that general that you can call this, you can do this as many times as you want. The call of prayers can be done as much as you want, there is not a problem. Meaning pray as much namaz as you want to, there is not an issue. When we look at the purpose that namaz was created, the purpose of namaz was to keep you away from those things that are purposeless. Those things that are munkar, those things that are sins, those things that are against the tenets of Islam. Meaning a person who prays, the person who does their salah, will live a life in which they will not commit sin. They will live a life in which anything that goes against the tenets of Islam, that this person who's reciting namaz will be able to say that what you're doing is wrong. They will stay away from all of these things. But namaz became as a ritual in Islam. Just like there are rituals for Christianity, there are rituals in Judaism, there are rituals in Hinduism, just like the way they go to the mandir or they go to the temple or they go to the synagogue or they go to the churches, that you just go there, you do your rituals and you come home. That those rituals has nothing to do with the political system, it has nothing to do with sins, it has nothing to do with anything. You just have to do the rituals and that's it. If it was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was just looking for these rituals, He would have said that, okay, you know what, as long as you just do these rituals, that's it. You can dress whichever way you want, you can get married just the way that you want, you can speak whichever way you want, you can sit down whichever way you want, you can buy a house whichever way you want. The rest of the things that you are involved with in your life, He would have no do's and don'ts. He would have no jurisprudence. He would have no laws. He would say, as long as you just do the namaz, then you can eat whatever you like. Right? As long as you pray namaz, you can listen to music, it's okay, as much as you want. As long as you pray namaz, you can do whatever that your heart desires is okay. But He didn't do that. In our religion, every single thing that a person would do, a Muslim would do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told the person how to do it, when to do it, and what is this for. So that sort of idea was not an old idea, it was not a new idea, it was an old idea, but people had forgotten about that. And Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah, he came over and he said, no, you cannot live under any other system, you cannot have any other economical system, you cannot live under any tyrants. In order for you to be a Muslim and for you to be able to go forward, you need to have Islam and an Islamic government. And the person who's going to rule over you has the criteria given to us by Quran, by the Prophet, by Imam Mahdi. That person has to fit that criteria. Not the criteria that you will think of. No, it has to fit that criteria. If you look at Islam in that particular way, this was something that is an example for us living in the West or anywhere else in the world. That you can't just accept that, okay, I'm going to live under this sort of rule, under these sort of laws, and I can be whatever, assimilate into the society and lose my identity, and I can still be a Muslim. It doesn't happen this way. We have traditions from the Prophet that says that when you wake up in the morning, if the first thoughts that come to your mind is not about your brothers and sisters, you're not even a Muslim. And how is it possible that a person can say that I'm submitting to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 17 minutes in a day, and the rest of the time I'm going to submit to the will of someone else. We're not even allowed to eat without submitting to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not allowed to speak without submitting to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not allowed to do anything in our life without, we have to submit to the will of Allah. That was the main difference that Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah brought into, and the people accepted. Imam Masumin alayhi salam, they kept telling the people, but the people did not accept. Even till today, people are not accepting. But the people in Iran accepted this fact, with Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah having what he had done, as far as getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, submitting to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that closeness that he was able to achieve towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people were moved by his words. People looked at him as their leader. People looked at him as someone who will say whatever and they will submit. You know, when he would come on the minbar as I have come, when he would say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, people will start crying. If you want, you can look at the old videos and you'll see. Just by listening to his Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, people used to get moved, they would get into tears. Because the voice that was coming out of that soul was such that he had gotten so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that every single word that he spoke had an effect on people. And them having this sort of leader and getting the principles and tenets of Islam, the system of Islam, they were able to fight against all of the tyrants of the world. That he was alone, his people were alone, the people who followed him, they were alone. Inside of his country, he did not have complete support, but there was a group of people who were supporting him. Mother supported him, father supported him, kids supported him. 12-year-old kids, 8-year-old kids, 13-year-old kids, they supported him. The grandparents supported him. People with different walks of life supported him. For what? For Islam, for the sake of Islam. So that they can achieve that freedom which is in submission to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they were able to achieve that. Once that was achieved, it became a role model for the rest of the Muslims around the world. Some Muslims learned a little bit late. Some of the Muslims learned after 32 years that they cannot live under the tyranny and oppression of those people who are linked with the oppressors of the time. That's why you see the Islamic awakening all over the Islamic world, and people's ideas and mentality is changing because they have looked at that as a role model. They look at themselves and say, we don't have any respect. Whenever the tyrant wants, whenever the oppressor wants, they can come into our country, manipulate our government, take our rights, our resources, and we have nothing. But when they look at Iran, they see that, they are independent, economically they are doing really great, even though they have all of these sanctions and restrictions. Technologically, they are getting advancement in all different fields, in medical science, in nanotechnology, for example. The first 10 countries who are doing the most research in that one of them is Iran. As far as their exports are concerned, they are, in their exports, in their international business, they're doing really, really well. Their education system is pretty good. A lot of the people are, they're not illiterate, they're illiterate. The women are given their rights. They are in every single different field that you can think of. They are in the sciences, they are in the political system, they are in the army. They are also mothers and sisters and wives, but they're also playing an active role in the strength of the country, in the strength of Islam that is required right now. And that they can do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking them to do without any sort of shame or restriction. That they can say what they have to say to the rest of the world. All of the tyrants and oppressors are shaking in their boots because of it. So the Muslims around the world in the different countries started realizing that, the true respect and freedom is actually in that. If they do not bring that system in their country, then they are going to be shamed and they have to be living a wretched life for the rest of their life. So you see that all around the world, Muslims are starting to wake up. One of the personality that we are talking about, Shaykh Arif al-Husseini, he learned for Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh the same things that he was able to apply in Iran. He decided that he's going to take that same light and try to get the people of Pakistan to realize about the tenets and the principles which were in Iran, and Iran Islamic revolution was founded on. So he started working in Pakistan. He started to tell, first thing was that you guys have to realize that Islam is not a religion of just rituals. Islam is a way of life. Second was that these differences that you guys have among yourselves, that somebody is calling themselves Sunni, somebody is calling themselves this and that, these have to finish. One of his famous words are that we are worried about whether we're going to pray our prayer with hands open or hands tied. And he says that our enemy is concerned and worried about how to break our hands. We are stuck in that kind of thinking, and our enemy is thinking how to destroy us. And we're not thinking about the enemy. We need to become united. Unity in the cause of the respect and light of Islam. Not your individual respect. Not the respect of the community, not the respect of a household. We have to sacrifice everything for the respect and light of Islam. So if we would go to most of the people that were actually, in his speeches, whenever he would go in all around Pakistan, the people who were there, they were actually our Sunni brothers. The ulama of our Sunni brothers had great amount of respect for Shaheed. And he had a great amount of respect for them. You give respect and then you receive respect. Respect is not given, it is earned. He earned his respect from all of the different schools of thoughts in Pakistan. And what happened was that all of these people started to follow him. And the government of Pakistan realized that if he is going to continue this, because his path, his mission, his light is coming from the Islamic revolution of Iran, of Islam, then there is a possibility that the people in Pakistan would also want the same system, and they would want to live their life according to the tenets and principles of Islam. And that became a danger for them. Because in the system of Islam, you cannot have a ruler like you have right now. In the system of Islam, you cannot have a ruler who is breaking the tenets of Islam. Someone who is taking the blood of the innocent people. Someone who is feeding off the blood of innocent people. Someone who is hoarding money. Right now the president of Pakistan happens to be richer than the Queen. The Queen has, I think her net worth is about 7 billion or 6 billion. And his net worth is around 17 billion. Right? If he was to give half, or let's say even 2 or 3% of what he has in his account, the people of Pakistan, all of Pakistan, then let's say if he was to give 5 billion, he would still have how much? 12 billion. He will still be richer than the Queen. If he was to give $5 billion would mean that every single person in Pakistan will be able to get the necessities of life without a problem. That with $5 billion you can build the infrastructure of Pakistan. That these individuals who right now are fasting all day, Right now you have air conditioning. They don't have air conditioning. They don't have electricity. Imagine having to fast and there's no electricity, there's no fan. All day you are also working outside where the temperature is 35, 36, 40 degrees, 50 degrees. There's dirt all over, your working environment is not like you have working environments here. Thirst is there. And then when their time comes for iftari, they still don't have electricity to cook their iftari. Then maybe to grab water, they have to walk for miles to be able to get water with the fast. That the kids are crying, but the food is not cooked. Or the person wants to go get the things that they need, but when they go to the shops, they don't have them. Or that when my Ramadan comes, they increase the prices of the necessities of life. So now this poor person who worked all day with the fast, maybe was able to get 400, 600 rupees for that day. And that with that 400, 600 rupees, when he goes to the market and tries to get meat or vegetables or fruit or something for their family, they go and find out that, before my Ramadan something was 100 rupees, now it's 200 rupees. That people would live in a condition like that, where mothers are willing to sell their kids. That they will go and stand with the board saying that you can buy my daughter for 55,000 rupees. Give me the money and you can buy my daughter. Why is she doing that? She's doing that so that if somebody can come and buy that daughter of hers, then the rest of her kids can be saved. That this way she can save the brothers and sisters of that daughter. In this condition, the country should be, the people should be, and the leader can have all of this money. Is that the system of Islam? It's not the system of Islam. Basically, this is the system of oppression. This is the system of pharaohs. This is the system by which a few can become rich by sucking the blood of the innocent people. So they were afraid of that. They said that if this man who is a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who wants the system of Islam to be in Pakistan so that people can live according to that system, if that person continues that effort, then there will be maybe no difference left between Shias and Sunnis. That how we can go and target the Shias or we can go and target the Sunnis, we won't be able to do that. They would have joined hands in hand and they would become a strength for which will become a danger for their seat and also of the rest of the tyrants of the world. So what did they decide? First they decided that the people that are around him, they should start buying them. So they would come up to these people who are with him and say, you know what, we will give you money, we will give you power, we will give you security, we will save your life if you were to come with us. What are you going to do? What you're going to do is you're going to start getting information for us so that we can use that information against this person. So they became spies. These individuals who are with him, they became spies. And they started working for the agencies, for the intelligence services, for the government, and started collecting data. And of all those people who were around him, who were working very hard to be able to get that to the people, they started to buy people. Some they didn't have to buy. They just had to come and say, look at him. He's only studied this amount of years. He's so young. He doesn't have one white hair. He just came from Iran. Look at his language. He can't even, because he had a very strong accent when he spoke Urdu. Because Urdu was not his mother tongue. So he had a hard time speaking Urdu. So look at him. He can't even speak properly. And look at all of these people who are following him. Right? Himself, he doesn't know anything what is going on. All he's trying to do is just is becoming whatever Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah says, he says it in his speeches. And look at you. You know all of the books of Hausa. You have memorized them. You are Buzurg, you are an elder. You deserve a lot more respect and a lot more following than this person. You've studied more in Iran, you have a lot more experience. You should be the one who is a leader, not him. For those individuals, they didn't even have to give them money. All they did was, they just went up to them and started using their own self, their own weaknesses against them. And they said, yeah, you're right. He doesn't have any white hair. And a lot of the pictures you will see, it's like, there's no white hair. He was young. They said, okay, you know what? What this person is saying is right, and they became against him. So one was, the people were bought. Second was, that people were told that you should be the leader, not him, because you're better than him. And the third was, different organizations started to come against him. Like, you make an organization, you're basically doing the same thing. He's doing the same thing, you're doing the same thing. Just make up an organization and start your work. Soon, what happened was, these organizations who wanted to achieve a purpose, instead of trying to achieve the same purpose as Shaheed wanted to achieve, their organizations became the purpose. So they just started just taking care of the organizations. They did not care about what the purpose was. This is my event. Our organization has organized this event. We were able to bring 2,000 people. We were able to bring this many people. We are the ones who... So now what? You have one group of people who are bought. Second group of people who the enemy manipulated through arrogance. Third group of people who could not see that by getting these different organizations and making them as their God, that this is going to affect the main purpose that we're trying to achieve. And they're thinking that they're doing their religious duty when they are actually cutting the roots of religion. Now, with these three problems that he had to deal with, he still continued. He continued his efforts, and the enemy starts seeing that although we have given these three things for him to be affected, for him to be stopped, for him to not grow any further, for him not to get any more popular than he is, for people to start becoming less and less in his speeches and where he used to go and organize events, it's not working. People are still crazy about him. You know, when he used to go and speak, there would be thousands of people. My younger brothers and sisters, I would urge you to go on the internet or ask one of your elders who maybe have those videos. You'll see there's a sea of people that are there to look at him, to speak, to hear him speak. There would be so many people that you could not drive the car that I was in. People would lift the car. People would get so close to the car that the car could not be driven. It would just be in the middle of people. Right? They saw that this is not working. His voice is still strong. The following is still strong. He's still continuing his mission. And all that we have tried is not working. Then what? What are we going to do? You see, this is the same thing that happened in Karbala as well. Imam Musalla is there. The tyrant Yazid comes in power. Right? When the tyrant Yazid comes in power, he himself is too busy in breaking the tenets and the laws of Islam, too busy in drinking, too busy in listening to music, too busy in managing, his parties and so forth, and saying that there is no religion, not praying, not reciting Quran, not doing anything, and just saying to religion is just the way for Bani Hashim, the Prophet's family, to gain power over people, and there's actually no Prophet that came and no Wahi that came, no revelation, Mazallah, came. It's just a drama. It's just a ye khel hai. He started saying that. So he was actually busy with that. But the people around him saw that in Medina was a light, was a power, was a being. That if this being starts working, this person who doesn't know anything about government, this person who doesn't know anything of how to even speak, is just worried about his lowly desires and submitting to the will of shaitan, is going to lose out, and the people are going to overpower him, and then the rightful owners of rulership is going to get their right. Because Imam Hassan ﷺ had made all of the arrangements for Imam Hussain ﷺ for people to get to that point where Imam Hussain can become the leader of Muslim Ummah. And what would have happened? Bani Umayyah's rule, right? This kingship sort of idea in Islam which does not exist would have stopped. So said, what should we do? We should start buying people off. They started buying people off. What should we do? We should tell them that, you know what, you are also from the family of the Prophet, you are also someone who has a lot of following, you also have forefathers that were really great and did a lot for Islam. You should start taking the leadership. And the third, they said, you know what, we will have these sort of little organizations that are going to be in different cities who will propagate the idea of kingship. And when they saw that Imam Hussain ﷺ is not getting affected, he's not going to stop saying what he's saying, they wanted him to become part of that system. He said, I cannot become part of that system because a person like me cannot become a part of a system like that. What to do then? Martyr him. Martyred him, and they did. In Karbala, they martyred him. Very few people were with him. But were they successful? They weren't successful. Because we still have the event of Karbala, and we still have the message of Karbala, and we still have the tenets and principles of Imam Hussain ﷺ, even though at that time those people did not realize, but after approximately 1400 years, when Imam Khomeini asked the people, they said, yes, labbaik. And they Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. You see, when people, when you see Sayyid Hassan Nasrullah speaking, and then he says labbaik ya Hussain, and all of these people are saying labbaik ya Hussain. Labbaik ya Hussain means yes, Imam Hussain. Labbaik means that you are saying yes to the call of Imam Hussain. Labbaik means saying yes to the sacrifice of Imam Hussain. Labbaik means saying yes to justice and the right Islam. Labbaik means to say no to the oppressors. Right? And they are saying that, thousands of people right now. They're not saying labbaik ya Hassan Nasrullah. They're not saying any of that. They're saying labbaik ya Hussain. Why? Because this person and Imam Khamenei, the true leaders of the Muslim Ummah, what they are doing? They are standing on the principles of Imam Hussain. That is why people are saying labbaik ya Hussain. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam in Nahjul Balagha, he says that you should learn from history, and by learning from history you should learn from the people's mistakes, what they have done wrong. And if you learn from the mistakes of the people of the past, it would be as if you lived with the people of the past. If we learn from the mistakes of the history and we learn the tenets and the principles of Islam, even if I was not present, for example, at the time of Imam Hussain, but if I'm living on those principles, I am with him. You guys were not maybe even born when Shaheed Arif was martyred. In 1988, August 5th, you were not born. But today that we are speaking about him, and if you understand the tenets or principles of the way to live your life according to the principles of Islam, then it was as if you were in the time of Shaheed Arif. So it is not necessarily that you have to spend time with a great personality. There are many people who spend time with him, but look what happened to them. Either they got bought, or they got involved in having their own different organizations, or they became arrogant and started against him. उन लोगों का क्या बना है जो शहीद के साथ थे, जिन्होंने उनके साथ वक्त गुजारा, जिन्होंने उनके जलसों को अटेंड किया, जिन्होंने कहा कि हम उनकी सपोर्ट करते हैं, जिन्होंने उनके साथ जो है अपनी आवाज़ को मिलाया, वो किधर हैं? उसमें से बहुत सारे ताबूत की गोद में बैठे हुए हैं। अगर सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक अजीम हस्ती के साथ, एक शख्सियत के साथ वक्त गुजारना काफ़ी हो, तो फिर हमारे पास इस तरह की इबरतें नहीं होनी चाहिए थी। अगर हमारे पास इस वक्त इस तरह की इबरतें हैं और तारीख़ इस्लाम के अंदर हमेशा ये रहा है कि इतनी अजीम हस्तियाँ आईं इस दुनिया के ऊपर, रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम जैसी, इमाम महदी जैसी, उनके साथ लोगों ने वक्त गुजारा, उनके साथ उनकी रिश्तेदारी थी, उनके साथ उनका उठना बैठना था, लेकिन उन्होंने क्या किया? So even though we were not present at that time, but if we learn the tenets and principles of how he lived his life, and you start living your life accordingly, it is as if you lived with him, even if you come after 1,000 years. Imam Khomeini rahmatullah, somebody asked him, I've said this to you many times, he said, where did you get this, all of this? He said, Muhammad Chizdani was Karbala darim, whatever we have is from Karbala. So Imam Khomeini rahmatullah, it is as if he lived at the time of Imam Hussain. It is as if he was part of the revolution that Imam Hussain brought. Although he was born after 1400 years. The way he looked at life was the same way as Imam Hussain looked at the life. Right? So for my brothers and sisters who are young, who are not familiar with this personality, although we have his picture and you come here and you see him every single day, you should do a little bit of research, try to find out, do a bit of research in the history, try to see that, who he was, what his principles were. There are many different stories that are there in the books that are narrated by the people who were with him. And in a way, Shaheed actually knew that his time has come. We have his speeches where he says that, today the petals of these roses have stained my clothes as red. Soon you will see my clothes being stained by my own blood. The closeness that he had with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a way he knew that he was going to be martyred. These tyrants and oppressors that were at that time thought that by killing him, by martyring him, this revolution will stop. But what they forgot, that the blood of the martyr feeds the roots of the principles of Islam. That Islam's tree has always been saved by the blood of the martyrs. That if today you have namaz, you have roza, you have hajj, you have someone telling you the way of life of Islam, is because there was a shaheed's blood that saved the tree of Islam. We should also consider that, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask us that we are able to get that particular status of martyrdom. हो सकता है खुदा हमें भी एजाज़ दे कि हम इस दुनिया से शहीद जाएं. اگر ہم اس دنیا سے ایک شہید کی حیثیت سے چلے گئے تو اس دنیا میں بھی ہم زندہ رہیں گے، برزخ میں بھی زندہ ہیں، آخرت میں بھی زندہ ہیں۔ ایک اچھا جملہ ہم نے سوکریٹس کا جو ہے وہ سنا، اس نے کہا کہ یہ اب سوکریٹس وہ ہے جس نے کہ یہ ساری چیزیں دی ہوئی ہیں ان لوگوں کو، جو سب یہ فلسفہ ہے، یہ سارا کچھ کہتا ہے کہ all men's souls are immortal، سارے لوگوں کی جو روحیں ہیں وہ کیا ہیں؟ immortal ہیں، ہمیشہ رہنے والی، یعنی مریں گی نہیں۔ But the souls of the righteous are immortal and divine۔ وہ کہتا ہے کہ جو ایک متقی پرہیزگار کی روح ہوتی ہے وہ ہمیشہ رہے گی بھی، اور وہ روح خدائی بن جاتی ہے، becomes divine، وہ روح مقدس بن جاتی ہے۔ تو ایک جو شہید کی روح ہوتی ہے، ہماری روح ہم نے نہیں مرنا، ہماری روح نہیں مرے گی، لیکن شہید کی روح ایک تو نہ تو مرتی ہے بلکہ وہ ایک خدا کے نزدیک وہ درجہ حاصل کر لیتی ہے کہ جس کے اندر اس کی تقدیس ہوتی ہے، اور خدا اسے کہتا ہے کہ یہ مرے ہوئے نہیں ہیں۔ There is a verse of Quran says لا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله امواتا بل احياء عند ربهم يرزقون، that do not call or do not consider those people who have died in the way of Allah as dead, but they are alive and they are with their Lord and they are being given sustenance. So just wrapping it up now, closing it off. August 5th, 1988. How many years have gone by? Approximately. How many years? 24 years. So 24 years ago this event happened. After 24 years, people still remember it, and they're talking about it all over the world. In which countries? Countries like US, countries like Canada, countries like Australia, in Europe, in UK, all around the world, people are remembering that day, remembering his personality, remembering what he was able to achieve, remembering that he was a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and remembering those people, also trying to get lesson from those people who went against him. تو جو ایک عظیم شخصیت ہوتی ہے وہ کبھی بھی نہیں جاتی اس دنیا سے، وہ لوگوں کے دلوں کے اندر رہتی ہے، وہ لوگوں کے ذہنوں میں رہتی ہے، وہ لوگوں کی زندگیوں میں رہتی ہے، پوری دنیا کے اندر ان کا ذکر ہوتا ہے، ان کے بارے میں لوگوں کو بتایا جاتا ہے، اور ان کے دشمنوں کو بھی یاد کیا جاتا ہے، تاکہ آنے والے لوگ اس بات کو جان لیں کہ سچائی کیا ہوتی ہے اور جھوٹ کیا ہوتا ہے، what is حق and what is باطل۔ I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all of the mercy and grace that He has, that great personality that He had bestowed upon us, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase His levels in heaven. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ان کے درجات کو بلند کرے، خدا ہمیں توفیق دے کہ ہم ان کے رستے پر جو کہ رستہ ہے امام حسین صاحب السلام کا، اس کے اوپر ہم چل سکیں۔ خدا ہمیں توفیق دے کہ ہم ان کی زندگی سے سبق حاصل کر کے اپنے آپ کو خدا کے نزدیک لے کے چلے جائیں۔ خدا ہمیں توفیق دے کہ ہماری آواز میں وہ اثر ہو کہ جس سے اس وقت کے جو طاغوت ہیں وہ لرزیں۔ خدا ہمیں توفیق دے کہ ہم ظلم کے خلاف ہمیشہ آواز اٹھا سکیں۔ خدا ہمارے بچوں کو یہ توفیق دے کہ وہ امام حسین صاحب السلام کے مشن کو، ان کے مقصد کو پہچانیں اور اس کے اوپر چلیں۔ خدا ہمیں شہادت کا رتبہ عطا فرمائے۔ ہم تھوڑے ہیں، خدا ہمیں زیادہ کرے، ہمارے آپس کے پیار اور محبت کو بڑھائے۔ خدا وہ لوگ جو کہ اس وقت جیلوں کے اندر ہیں اسلام کے نام پہ، جن کو کہ قید کیا گیا، خدا ان کو رہائی دے۔ تمام کے تمام مسلمان کہیں پہ بھی ہوں، وہ فلسطین میں ہوں، سیریا میں ہوں، پاکستان میں ہوں، کسی جگہ پہ بھی جہاں پہ مسلمانوں کو اوپر ظلم کیا جا رہا ہے، خدا ان کے ظلم کرنے والوں کو نیست و نابود کرے، ان کے ایمان کے اندر خدا اضافہ کرے تاکہ وہ ان کے ساتھ لڑ سکیں۔ خدا ہمیں توفیق دے کہ ہم یہاں پہ بیٹھ کر جو کر سکتے ہیں ان کی حمایت کے لیے ہمیں خدا توفیق دے کہ ہم وہ کر پائیں۔ خدا ہمیں امام کے اصحاب میں سے انصار میں سے شمار کرے. خدا امام کا ظہور جلد از جلد کرے. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. والعصر ان الانسان لفی خسر الا الذین آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.